Okay. All right, welcome everybody. This is the Lehigh County Authority Board of Directors meeting of September 11th, 2023. The meeting is being held in hybrid fashion with some board members present in the meeting room and others on video and phone using the Zoom app, I guess. Let's have a roll call of Board of Directors.
Okay. Roll call, Brian Noggle.
Here.
Amir Kamili.
Here.
Ted Lyons. Linda Rosenfeld.
Here.
Rick Cusick.
Here.
Kevin Baker.
Yeah.
Morgan.
Here.
Sean Ziller.
Here.
Mark Gramis. Mark, can you say that again? Make sure we can hear you.
Here.
So we have 8 board members present tonight.
Okay, have our forum. The meeting packet were distributed in advance electronically and hard copy and on our website. At this point, we review the agenda. Any changes to the agenda or executive sessions?
All right, well, I have no specific changes to the agenda, but would request just a change of the order so that we can do the 2022 audit and financial statements first, since we have representative from our auditors on the call, if that's all right. And also requested an executive session following the close of the regular meeting to discuss legal matter with our solicitor.
All right. Any questions? All right, let's move on then to approval of the minutes from the August 28, 2023 board meeting.
I move that the minutes be approved with, there was just a little bitty typo on the 3rd page, the end of the first paragraph. It says the planning work in on, and it should be is on. That's it.
Big Bonner would be proud of you.
Right.
All right, motion made by Linda and seconded by Amir. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 You opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. All right, public comments. At this point in time, we open up the floor to any of the public that has any items that they want to discuss that are not on the agenda. Are there any comments?
No comment. Thanks, Brian.
No, thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Jenny and Brian. Right, action discussion items. We have 2 items under finance. We're going to move the second one up to the first topic. It is 2002 audit and financial statements seeking acceptance. It's the digital board packet pages 7 to 86. It is the white document in our board package.
Ed.
So we have with us today, our principal audit manager, Nate Schwartz from Zelenkowski. He is going to kind of walk you through a couple of the nuances to the statements in terms of the opinion and maybe some of the notes, very similar to what he had done in the past. So welcome, Nate, and it's all yours right now.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me. I'd like to start it off again with thanking Ed, Linda, and Todd for helping get the information in a timely fashion when we were able to get everything finally from PMRS. Also like to address that the report from PMRS did come a lot quicker this year. It's my anticipation that we will get that in a time frame next year that will hopefully allow us to get back on issuing the statements on April 30th. So that's good news. It appears that they're finally getting those reports out much quicker. First thing I wanted to go over, I have a couple required communications I'd like to go over with the board. Very straightforward. We didn't have any significant issues this year. There were no internal control issues that I'm required to communicate to the board. We had no disagreements with management on accounting policies or practices. The engagement team and everyone else within our firm maintained all ethical and independence requirements throughout the engagement. There were no significant changes in accounting principles or policies this year. We encountered no significant difficulties in dealing with management throughout the audit. There were no uncorrected misstatements that are significant to the financial statements, and there were no consultations with outside consultants or accountants. With that being said, this year, again, as we have for the past couple of years, we issued a clean, unmodified opinion on the financial statements. So that's the highest level of assurance that the AICPA allows us to give on the financial statements. Basically saying that nothing came to our attention that they were materially misstated in any way, shape, or form. So again, that's the highest level we can give. Real quickly, I just, again, want to point out two notes that I always try to point out to everyone on the board. The first is note 8 on page 47 of the statements. So that's your long-term debt note. What I wanted to, it's much longer than just what's on page 47. It lists all the various debt issuances of the authority, the long-term obligations. I'd like to point out on page 47, there's one for all three of the divisions: the suburban water, suburban wastewater, and then the city division. But that just gives you a breakout of principal and interest in first 5 year, and then 5 year increments thereafter. So that'll give you an idea, you know what I mean, which I know you all know because Ed presents it, but it lays out the debt service requirements that are going to be due within those years. Obviously, if you refund, that'll change something, but always a good note to look at for the board, you know what I mean? The next one, because there's a massive estimate involved in your pension calculation of the asset liability, same way with the OPEB. On page 66 of the financial statements, note 14 is your pension plan. So basically, one of the main assumptions that drives that number is the discount rate that they use, or the rate that they think you're going to get as a return on your investments. PMRS, I think, is at 5.25% right now, which is very conservative. They do work a little differently than other actuaries when they're calculating that. It's based off a little more than just the investment return. But that discount rate is a massive factor in determining what your pension asset or liability is. Currently, you have a pension asset of $4.6 million. Now, if we would reduce that discount rate, or what we think you're going to earn on your future investments, by 1%, it knocks that asset all the way from 4.6 million down to 342,000. Vice versa, if they would increase that discount rate to 6.25%, it would take it from 4.6 million to 8.2 million. So just a massive fluctuation in there. I always like to point that out. The other thing that I would point out with your pension asset, it is measured a year behind. So that would have been as of December 31st, 2021. So that would not yet take into account the volatility in the market in 2022. So you'll be a year behind on that. And once they made that initial determination, PMRS, you can't switch from that. So we'll always be kind of a year in lag there. With that, those are really what I wanted to point out. If anybody has any questions.
Any board questions? Lengthy document. I'm sure everybody read every page. Appreciate your focusing us on the important issues before us. I think the discount rate is a big issue, so obviously there's nothing we can do about that. And it just comes down, and annually we get a new calculation based on information that they've been provided. Any other comments, questions? All right. Anything you would care to say, Ed?
No, actually, thank you, Nate, for all the hard work. I know dealing with PMRS is always a lot of fun for you and the crew. And I just want to also point to my crew, Todd, Linda, Michelle, the rest of them, that spend a lot of time on this, trying to get it all done in a timely basis. So thank you.
And the board wishes to thank you as well. This is a lot of information that's pulled together on an annual basis. I do hope that we can get this done in April, as Nate has promised.
I would love to be able to be done in April, because quite frankly, with some of the other things that go on, April's a better time frame. And I know my crew's gonna go, oh yeah, sure it is, but it is for us, so.
So Nate, what makes you think that PMRS is going to produce on time next year?
My firm actually does the audit of PMRS, so the information it's they have their system down now. Like I said, and I've talked to the audit team on it. I can't promise anything, obviously, but the way it's going right now, it looks like we should be good to go.
All right, that'd be great news.
And I know that's
Everybody.
obviously their goal too, yeah, so.
Okay. Good, Ned, thank you for you and your crew to hold this together.
Thank you.
Nate, presentation, good. All right, do we need to vote on it? I know we need acceptance of this.
Yeah, we typically ask for
Vote
acceptance.
for acceptance. Up here, move to acceptance, this report.
I'll second it.
Yeah, Jeff, you're second, sorry.
Okay.
All right, motion made and seconded to approve the document, to accept the document. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much, Nate.
Thank you.
And- All right, moving on to the next document. I've been remiss in setting up a finance committee. I will do that shortly. I've been actually working on that. Next year we'll have the support of an audit committee and our finance committee with review of the audit prior to the submitting of this document. So we have some more time spent on it. Okay, moving on to the 2024 budget preliminary review, the discussion topic.
Great, thank you. So just before I get into the presentation, as a reminder, our budget is required to be adopted by the end of October. So we start in September with some preliminary review. Today, we're really just focused at a high level on the assumptions and key strategic items that go into the budget proposal, and then it'll give you a preview of some of the numbers. And then next week, again, already as a reminder to everyone, we have just 1 week turn in between. So next Monday, we'll start to dig into the numbers a little bit more. We will also look at rates preliminarily in October, so that you have a chance to see the impact of that before we ask for approval of the budget in at the end of October.
I might have missed it. Did we just distributed this information to the board?
The presentation I just sent out, so you have it in advance. It's posted on our website, but there's no document for today. This is just a presentation of some of the key assumptions and strategic initiatives. Okay. So share my screen and get into some of the detail here. So I mentioned this previously, the flow of events here. We're looking at a number of meetings to review the details of the budget and the rates. And then following budget approval, we'll also ask for rate adoption in November. So we have some time for public notice on those rates before they're implemented. Today, we're going to focus on the budget assumptions, which focus on the support for strategic initiatives, any staffing changes we're recommending, and some other assumptions. And then it'll go through some key factors for each fund. So I wanted to start just with a quick retrospective on what we asked for last year. Last year was really the first time that we really started focusing on our strategic plan as a driver for the budget, and wanted to just remind ourselves of what we talked about last time. So this time, almost exactly to the day 1 year ago, we asked for 3 staff additions for 2023. one of whom is sitting in the room, our Director of Engineering and Asset Management. AJ was able to join us shortly after the budget was approved. A compliance technician for plant operations and a training coordinator for human resources. And then we also asked for support for other strategic initiatives in the form of consulting support for our strategic asset management plan, Munis reimplementation project, and all kinds of different support for the Act 537 work that Phil's heading up. So that's what we asked for in this time last year. And I think we're doing actually a really good job of hitting on a vast majority of the strategies that we laid out at that time. Really pleased that the Kleins Island Sewer System Act 537 work is on track and on schedule. AJ's done a phenomenal job keeping us on task with the strategic asset management plan. We haven't talked a lot about that. It's kind of been a lot of staff workshop type work that AJ's been heading up. And we can probably hit on that in more detail at a future meeting. We do have some improvements in small system compliance, thanks to Andrew's efforts. And we still have more work to do. We're still talking about bypasses at Heidelberg and issues at Sand Spring, but we are seeing some really good improvements in our small systems. We've taken a little detour from some of our stated strategies to focus on grant applications. And we were awarded 3 grants in 2023, and we have 3 more applications out there that we're waiting for results on. So I think that's good, very good. The Environmental Health and Safety Committee that has been formed, or steering committee that's been formed, absolutely doing a good job raising the profile of safety in the organization. And then lastly, doing a major boost to employee engagement through events and training and opportunities for employees to work together across the organization. So this is just a high level recap. We will do a more formal quarterly report as we always do in October. This graph I rolled out to you last time, I believe in July, and I just wanted to bring it up again because when I presented this in July, we have this orange piece of the pie that we said was at risk and of not being completed. And we kind of changed that to say the schedule's been adjusted. These are items that are. Oh, Linda's probably on the phone. So that we've adjusted the schedule on some of these items so that they'll just carry forward into 2024. I'll talk about a couple of them in a minute. Some of the drivers for the schedule adjustments, really can't say enough about the staff and turnover impacts. It has been tremendous for us. 2022 into 2023, we've seen just a huge amount of turnover that's happening everywhere across the nation. And when I looked at the staff list kind of preparing for today, I was surprised. It kind of crept up on us how much turnover we've been experiencing because we're constantly filling open positions. But to see within 1 year, we have 30 employees who have a start date within 1 year prior to today. So between September 1st of 2022 and September 1st of 2023, 30 new employees have been added to the roster. We haven't changed headcount. That's just been the turnover that we've experienced. And you can imagine with having that many new employees here, that takes a lot of time related to training, recruiting, onboarding, and that does impact our ability to keep movement on some of the big things.
Can you explain a little bit more about the 30 employees that might have left to be replaced by 30 new ones?
Drivers?
Retirements,
Yeah.
Drivers.
Yeah, we've had a number of retirements. We've also had just a fair amount of turnover in the operational groups with people moving on to other opportunities, whether it's base pay or it's the work. We've had, I would say, more turnover with new employees than longstanding employees. So hire someone, they stay for 6 months and go. So we've hired the same position multiple times. People come in, start the work and realize maybe it's a little different than what they expected, or there's a lot of competition in terms of pay out there. So that's really where I think we've seen the most turnovers at short-term employee base. Our consultants are feeling the same thing. So where we do rely on consultants for a fair amount of engineering and planning work, they're feeling the same pressures. And so that tends to make our projects maybe stretch out a little longer than we'd like, or be more difficult finding the service that we need. We've also faced this year just a whole host of new challenges, and that's shifted our priorities, focusing on the lead program, the PFAS issues, pursuing those grant opportunities, et cetera. And just trying to move the ball forward on these big projects all at the same time. Essentially all the same people working on all of these big things together. So there's been a little bit of schedule shift on a few items. So I wanted to use that as a backdrop to talk about what we've worked on with the staff group in terms of our priorities for 2024. They're similar or building on what we've been working on, but there's a couple nuances or new elements here. So for water and sewer capacity, our real focus here, this is the top priority for the whole organization, is to get that plan written by September of next year. And we're on track for that. It just will take a lot of effort among a lot of people here to do that. The next one is the Munis project. This is one where the schedule is shifting a bit. Part of that relates to consultant support we've received, as well as understanding the full scope of what we want to achieve with this project. So we've shifted the go live target date for this by at least 6 months from where we were last year. Within the operational excellence area, we've really put a lot of focus on the lead program. That's more of a newer initiative based on EPA regulatory framework. So really trying to make sure we're ready for that. There's some key target dates in 2024 we need to hit, and also making sure we're ready to take advantage of the near-term grant funding that's available. One thing that we did, trying to be responsive to the questions we're receiving from the board and the attention on safety, we had previously had employee engagement and safety combined into one category. We've split that apart so that safety stands on its own as a higher priority item, and focusing on implementing some improvements in our metrics and our training and communication. I mentioned before about the strategic asset management plan that we're expecting to have done by the end of the year. And so focusing in 2024 on implementation of some of those key elements, and then getting out into the systems and doing some asset management planning work there. And on employee engagement, focusing on staff development planning, and really trying to support our new employees that we have, as well as existing long-term employees, to give a career growth opportunity where we can. So that's the background of the highest level top priorities for 2024 that we've developed as a leadership team. What we've done from there, we did this work in July together, and then in August focusing on, so what do we need to build into the 2024 budget to support all of this work, as well as some other priorities that aren't listed here. It's a lot. I'm just warning you. We have a fair amount to go over here. I don't want to go through all of this in granular detail, especially on this one, because you've already heard about most of these within the capital plan presentation. But in each of these areas, for water and sewer capacity, process improvement, operational excellence, and asset management, we have projects that were identified in the capital planning process and incorporated into the 2024 capital budget from the 5-year capital plan that's been proposed. So you'll see things here, without reading all 12 things on the list, you'll see things here like engineering support for key projects in the sewer planning area. The Munis implementation project shows up in the capital plan. Some of the projects related to lead service lines or the PFAS treatment and design, we talked about that within the capital plan. And then for asset management, really getting into the systems and doing master planning, asset management plans for some of our systems. So you should be able to tie all 12 of these things back to something you've already seen within the capital plan. Just wanted to highlight them as being really specifically tied to our strategic plan in 2024. And then here we have some specific requests that we're including in the operational budget. Spend a little more time on these because we haven't seen these or talked about these before. First of all, our top priority there related to the Act 537 plan. We really need to begin working toward completing that plan, but then also planning for how we're going to implement all the projects that will be part of that plan. So we're recommending that Phil should have some help with that work and would like to add a planning engineer for Phil's team to help with the completion of the Act 537 plan, but then also beginning to prepare for implementation of those projects. The next one relates to operational excellence and the lead program. We expect to be working on lead compliance program for a long period of time, at least a decade. And the EPA program is really a forever program in terms of monitoring for lead and removing lead service lines from the system and all the compliance activities that go along with that. So we're recommending adding staff addition, reporting to Andrew, to serve as our lead program manager. That lead program manager would handle the compliance activities as well as providing guidance to the capital program for replacement of lead service lines, and also being the liaison with DEP for how we report on our lead service line inventory and all of the things that go along with that. Any point along the way you want to stop and ask a question, by all means. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going. The next two relate to really some consulting services we want to add to the 2024 budget. First is to do a comprehensive review of our emergency response plan. That has not been done in several years. A lot has changed, personnel has changed, as well as emergency response protocols. So we'd like to tackle that in 2024. On the safety side, we have a request for some additional consulting services to bring some external help in with assessing and supporting some of the key areas of concern we've identified related to confined space, arc flash, and probably a few others that the EHS committee is working on. Under asset management, we have been talking about preventive maintenance activity and the need for preventive maintenance to be really first and foremost front and center of the asset management program that we have here at LCA. And in order to do that, we really do need to beef up our maintenance activity as well as the staff support for that. So we're suggesting adding 2 staff additions in the maintenance area in our suburban division, one in the field services side and one in the plant operations side. That's an area of the operation that has typically been pretty lean, and trying to make sure we have capacity for the maintenance activity there. Under employee engagement, we're asking for an increase in our education and training budget by about $150,000 to support career planning, training opportunities to develop our staff. Especially with so many new people needing to have good programs in place to build up our internal knowledge capabilities. And then finally, also under employee engagement, trying to take a different approach to the recruiting and workforce strategy issues we've been facing. Would like to roll out a new internship program And at this point, the details are just coming together, but we would like to budget for 6 interns to come in various departments. And we think that will go a long way toward helping us with our long-term recruiting, as well as providing some support and opportunity for the organization.
There's a couple of questions. Does it make sense first we see what the asset management program is before we start adding people?
We can do that. We can certainly do that. The focus with the showing these positions under asset management is really the focus on maintenance. We know that we're short on our maintenance activities today. When we look at our metrics for preventive versus corrective maintenance, we're still spending far more time on corrective maintenance than we are on preventive maintenance. So it's a baseline level of preventive maintenance that we need to build up to.
I think where I was going is that if you look at overall asset management, are we managing asset management in the most efficient way, or the way that we're going to have a new way of managing asset? Is that a more efficient way of allocating resources that we can shift resources? We don't have to hire 2 people. So I don't know that because I haven't seen the asset management. So I'm just trying to see, is that an overall picture of asset management, or are we just trying to add resources in one element, hoping that this asset management really does not affect the maintenance, the preventive maintenance that we're going to do?
I'm not sure I have an answer for that at this point, AJ. I don't know if you have a.
No, it's a good question. I think the asset management plan is going to define the best practices for what preventive maintenance programs we're going to implement. So take for a pump, for example, are we going to replace, how often are we going to grease the bearings, or whatever the activity is? That we're looking at that right now as far as what activities we need to do and at what frequency. If anything, it's likely that the maintenance activities will increase. So looking at these positions right now, is we know that we're currently not able to keep up with the current plan as it's currently laid out. So yeah, I guess the long and short of it is that the new plan will have input on this, but we're pretty confident that knowing what we need to do now is not going to change all that much. We're not able to keep up with it now. So these 2 positions would help with the current workload.
So you're assuming your asset management will not find inefficiency in other aspects of the work that you do?
It absolutely may. We may find some places where there's changes. Yeah.
I think we're really looking forward to the asset management plan, providing more guidance and support for the prioritization and justification for some of the repair and replacement type work that we do and the schedules that we have for main replacements or valve replacements and all those kinds of things as well.
The other one is for the employee engagement. Do we have any relation with schools, colleges, university around here? Because normally, at least from my limited experience, we went through colleges around here, universities, and tried to bring intern, a second year. Do we have that connection which we are trying to get 6 intern next year? That's a high number.
Yeah, we have some relationships. We still need to develop those relationships further. We have some relationships with like L-Tri-C and LCTI, Kutztown, et cetera, but we need to build on those for this. We think for the work that we have and looking at some other areas, other regions that have done internship programs for water and sewer, we think that we can be successful in getting 6 interns in and have a pretty good framework to as a go by, like how it's worked in other areas where we think we can kind of mimic.
I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Sorry for cutting back. The intern you're looking for are the like the engineering type, or you're looking for a maintenance type, so, because, you know, so LTIC or LCTI, it has different caliber of people versus a Lehigh or Drexel, right?
Yeah, so we have not put the details of the plan together. When we were talking internally, we were talking more operational in terms of treatment plant operators and maintenance type of work, but we have not met internally to really put all the details of that plan together.
I would just add to that, I've actually seen both, lots of, they do, you know, most of the intern programs that I've been involved with, they try and get folks in that are maybe gonna be in the engineering side, and then they want, you know, other people who may go a different route, you know, electrician, or, you know, they might be going to trade school and there's maintenance or plant operations, things like that. So it's actually, I've seen combination.
Yeah.
So, and it's helped to, you know, potentially get people to be hired for other positions other than those needing a college
Yeah, I
degree.
mean, the reason I asked that question, because LCTI and LTIC are not gonna give you a mechanical engineer.
Correct.
Right, so they're gonna give you, so that was my point
Yes.
of trying to make. There's, depending upon what university you get a different
Correct.
pool of talent.
We have also some interns with, I forget what school they're from, but for the lab that have.
We've had quite a few from Kutztown University that have ended up
Sure.
being full-time employees.
You have a biology or chemistry degree or something like that, yep.
Sean,
Somebody has a question.
yeah, Sean, you have a question?
I do, yeah. I mean, I think my kind of comments, maybe in the review of the capital plans, has buried the lead in terms of what I'm about to ask. But you know, I know a large part of that capital plan, or each of the three capital plans, is reliant on grant funding. So my question is, has there been any consideration internally about having particularly as there is a greater reliance on that grant funding, a position that's a concentrated grant administrator or something of that capacity, rather than spreading the grant responsibilities, grant writing across the existing staff?
Mm-hmm. And we have not built that into this budget proposal. We do have some external support that we've been using for preparing grant applications. So we're doing less of it internally and have external support, project specific external support for grant applications. However, it's really not part of this presentation, but since we're talking about staffing, we are planning to do a staffing analysis and getting some help for that actually this year, within this year's timeframe, and looking at questions like that. What other positions are missing from our complement, you know, for the new stuff that we have going on, like grant activity and some of the project load that's coming as well. We're concerned about how we staff up for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Back to just a question on the maintenance technicians. Is it a matter of now you're paying overtime to keep up? So that's when you're looking, you kind of have an idea that you need people, or are there things that just are not getting done, they're getting put off? Like, how's that being handled?
It's a little bit of both. Chris and Andrew can give more color. I know that we're doing a fair amount of maintenance activity on overtime, and then there's also some things that we're just not getting done.
So super high level, at the beginning of this asset management program, we were tasked with getting everything into the system that has been missing from the system. In the very beginning, we were already falling short. And as we are going through all of the new systems and adding in more preventative maintenance, we're getting deeper and deeper in the hole. To your point, Jeff, we do offer overtime on weekends, a fair amount of it, probably more than we normally would have, to try to catch up on a lot of what we consider standard maintenance with valve turning, hydrant exercising, you know, all the standard stuff. And then put on top of that the day-to-day actual emergency work that our guys do. So, you know, for field services in particular, it is just a volume and you know, the amount of stuff that's getting added in on a regular basis. So we are seeing overtime and just being underwater on top of it.
Yeah, and just to add to that, especially on the plant side, our guys really spend a lot of time on corrective maintenance, and that just pushes back all those other preventative maintenance programs, which in return creates more corrective maintenance. So it's sort of been a revolving door, and we've really identified that in the current system, we could use some additional help.
We also have a question from Mark.
Yes, thank you, Brian. Actually, I have two. Been talking about asset management, and that's what flagged this latest thought in my mind. A lot of maintenance departments, and you talked about corrective maintenance and preventive maintenance. How much time do you allocate between the two on average? How much is corrective and how much is preventative? Does anybody have a good gut feeling for that?
Well, we have that as one of our benchmarks or key performance indicators for our quarterly report. So I don't have that actually here today. We'll be looking at that again next month, but it's our target is 2/3 preventive, 1/3 corrective, and we're not there.
Do we have a good predictive or equipment reliability program at LCA? That tends to, if you have a good equipment reliability program, it tends to minimize the effects on the corrective maintenance down the line if you can use industry experience. I mean, do we have anything like that?
I think on a case by case basis, we have some of that, like we're doing vibration analysis or that kind of work on certain pieces of equipment, but not as a universal sort of approach. So, we in the industry, in our industry, we look at preventive maintenance as being the key thing. Predictive maintenance is like the next level. And we're trying to get to the base level of really focusing on preventive maintenance.
Okay. And then my original question, if I could just follow up, as far as your interns, internship is, it's nice to say we want 6 interns, but internship in this day and age, a lot of times it's competitive. You want to make sure you bring somebody aboard that actually could result down the road into an employee. So I've been involved with programs where the worst thing you can do for an internship for an engineer is to have them just become like somebody that fetches a drawing for you or retrieves drawings. You want to really get them involved. So, do we have an internship program developed as far as what our goals would be and what we would intend to teach or train our interns on over a 3-month period or 6-month period, however long it would be? Because if we don't have a program, it really doesn't do anybody any good.
Right. No, I agree with you 100%, Mark. We're putting this in as a proposal for the 2024 budget, but we do not have those details put together yet. I mentioned earlier one of the go-bys or programs that we've been learning a lot about is it's actually a consortium of utilities in the Horsham area. Right. And they have a really great program with a lot of success. They did, I believe, 9 interns last year. They were able to rotate them between facilities, and then they have a fairly good success rate of actually retaining them as employees to fill positions. So trying to learn from what's really already working out there, and if we can model it after that program and do the connections with our local schools, we think we can be successful. We still need to do the legwork though and put it together.
Yeah, one thing on that note that I would suggest is maybe reaching out to Nancy Dishnat with the Workforce Development Board and see what people are looking for, and maybe she has some ideas. It might be worth a conversation sometime between you and her, Liesl, to get some ideas.
Yeah, I definitely know Nancy and have her guide on developing an internship program and the contacts that she's created, she shared with me. So yeah, that's great, Mark. Thank you.
Sounds good. All right. That's all I have. Thank you, Brian.
Just the terminology. Intern is what time period? 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 3 months. Okay.
Programs I've seen, a lot of that time is basically shadowing.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily, you need to keep them busy, as Mark said, but a lot of that time is spent shadowing some different things to keep it simple. Yeah. So
yeah, it's different from our seasonal help, which are
yes,
worker bees.
Yes,
that we need
exactly
to get things done. Yeah.
I think you need to have a specific value expected for them to gain and a value for us to gain. Just be able to identify who's going to be a likely candidate that we want to keep on, and also give them the things that they need to have want them to come on. Laying that out in advance is very important.
Yeah.
And I know the biggest challenge is treatment plant operation, correct? Well, that's gotta be a focus because that's really tough to fulfill.
I mean, the water industry in general just has a real marketing problem in terms of career path for utility plant operators, and trying to let the local schools know that this is a real career, it's a real opportunity, and here's a way to get in the door and kind of treat it almost as a marketing opportunity as well, I think will help.
All right, we continue on.
Okay, great. So I debated about the two maintenance technicians, whether to put them here under asset management or just ask for them as other staff to meet operational needs. I think having a good discussion about how it ties to asset management was good. So I appreciate the questions on that. All right. So this is just a quick synopsis, and then I turn it over to Ed on the staffing changes. We currently have 167 employees, and we have 7 vacant open positions at the moment, which is really not bad. We've been doing a pretty good job lately at getting our open positions filled. So we are asking for 7 additional new positions in 2024 that would bring our total head count to 181. So what's shown here below are the staff additions that we're requesting: the planning engineer, lead program manager, and 2 maintenance technicians we already spoke about as being tied to our strategic plan. And then we have some additional requests. First one is for an in-house solicitor. We have that listed as tentative. We do have an RFP out to update our relationship with an external solicitor. I've been talking with Mike and King Spry about that, as well as some others. At the same time, we also do have an ad that's going out for in-house solicitor, just to see kind of what's out there. We've been on both sides of that and really just want to keep that option open. There's a request for an additional construction inspector to support the development activity, as well as the construction activity for our capital works department. And then an additional customer service representative for our suburban division. Currently, we have 2 customer service reps for our entire suburban division, and we're asking for, it's actually 0.6, so it'd be a part-time position. So we have a candidate already kind of identified for that if we're able to fund it for 2024.
There's on the question of inspector. We have an awful lot planned work to be done, and we've traditionally hired consultants to do most of the inspection. Will this relieve additional staff time that, or also eliminate some of the contract inspectors that follow the projects?
Yeah, Chuck, can you give a little more detail on what your thoughts are?
Yeah, this is an inspector for developments, not LCA projects per se, but it's for all the developments that are occurring in our systems that we end up taking over ownership and operation of the water lines of the utilities. So it's important for us to have a presence in the field to make sure our specifications and our standards are adhered to. Right now, we have 1 inspector for all development going on in our central Lehigh division and in our satellite divisions for suburban, and it's difficult to keep up. We farm inspection duties out that we cannot handle in-house to an outside engineer. We'd like to reduce reliance on the outside firm and do more in-house. So and all that work is paid for by developers. Okay, it's charged to the project and it's part of their improvements.
So, isn't it more cost efficient using the consultant, given that the ebbs and flows of the work and all the total cost for the employee?
Yeah, well, but we've looked at that, Amira. That's a good question. Based on the current development rate that we're seeing, that there's so much work our in-house inspector has to put in a lot of overtime to keep up. So when you figure the overtime and then what consultants are paying inspectors, it's very close. The math, when you factor in the benefits, the fringe benefits and everything, for having somebody in-house versus paying an outside consultant, it's not really a slam dunk. I think the intangible is to have somebody that has skin in the game, so to speak, somebody that works for LCA and that has maybe a greater attention to detail that can provide better representation in the field than a third-party firm can. I don't know if I answered your question there about the math. I hear what you're saying about the math. I don't have numbers.
I'm just trying to see, the fluctuation on the work, and the fact that, is that because when you hire a person,
Yes.
you hire the person.
Right, I get it, and I would like,
Trying to look at the long term.
yeah,
Is it the best benefit for a ratepayer that we go one way or the other? That's,
I would
I
want,
don't know that, right? I'm just asking the question, have we done the homework
I would want
to
this person
justify
to have,
10 years return?
I would want this person to have other skills, in case the inspection work, the workload goes down, like in the winter time, that this person can review plans, can do other things, can multitask. So this person is just not sitting around waiting for the next development project to break ground.
So construction inspections are a seasonal thing. At least
and anymore,
peaks in the summertime and then tapers off.
are, but we've been seeing the construction activity can continue well into the winter, and it's pretty much year round now. It's just crazy how things have grown in the last 10 years, the rate of development. So in short, we're having a hard time keeping up with the inspection workload. That's the reason to add another staff member and reduce reliance on the outside consultant.
In reality, if you think about it, right, maybe I'm getting too much details. The money that you pay to a consultant, the overtime you pay to inside inspectors, if you take that money, that should justify to hiring inspectors, right?
Yes.
So you don't have to add a budget because you already have the budget because you're spending that. Correct? So you don't need to get permission. You have the money. You just take it from this bucket, you put it in this bucket. Is that true or not?
Generally speaking, I think, I don't know if it's 100% wash, but it's generally true. It would make a close to a net zero impact. And furthermore, the developers are paying for my inspector's time out there inspecting the infrastructure.
So just as a matter of process, headcount additions always come to the board. But I would agree with you, if the net impact is zero, there's.
Net impact. I'm just asking, that's the reason I asked the accounting, if you are spending the money on the outside consulting and to the overtime, you add those things up and you say, I'm gonna hire a person. It's a math. You said, is it the plus or the minus? Should I hire or should not hire? Is it plus or minus 10%? Go for it. But is it plus or minus 50%? Then you have to.
It should be minimal impact. I don't know how Ed looks at it.
The key words were, it's a wash. I mean, theoretically, you are spot on with it. We're gonna hire a person because we're gonna spend less for an outside consultant. And it actually is a better mechanical deal to pay for them ourselves. That's fine.
Okay. Moving on.
All right, so those are the requested headcount additions. We spend a fair amount of time on that each year, because I think it's important. And when we think about the largest driver of our operational budget, it is personnel related expenses. So that is why we put that level of emphasis. Moving on, Mark has his hand up.
Yes, Lisa, I just want to refresh perhaps with Sean. I think it was last month, we talked about the possibility of adding another position, and I don't really recall what it was. If it was to have somebody that was perhaps familiar with the grant writing process, maybe you can help me out, Sean. I don't remember what your input was.
Yeah, it was essentially, I know that the responsibilities of grant writing right now is largely, up to the current, across the staff currently. So having a dedicated grant administrator now, admittedly, my thought would be, it would have to be somebody who is well versed, obviously, in the work that the LCA does in that area. So it would have to be somebody who's not, necessarily fresh out of college to do that job, but somebody whose dedicated role is to apply for these larger, I would think, routine grants, but also exploring other grant opportunities, one-offs and things like that, that I know a lot of municipalities and a lot of government organizations are going for.
Thank you, Sean. Has anybody, Lisa, have you given that any consideration in the budget?
For this budget, no, we have not. As I mentioned earlier, we are currently working toward completing a staffing analysis with some outside help. We're doing that now and over the next few months. We'll look at that type of a position, as well as several others that we're thinking about maybe needed to support long-term, like the program implementation for all the Act 537 projects. We need to look at what our staffing approach is for that, as well as the grants and some other areas. So we don't have that in our proposal.
Is any of the $150,000 dedicated to the training budget, given the thought process of training somebody in-house to look at where we can find applicable grants? Because these grants are out there. It's a shame when we miss the deadline. So that's what you always have to look at. You have to look at what the deadline is for acquisition, and then because they're significant. Even when they're not very large amounts, every little bit helps.
Sure. So I agree with you, Mark. The focus, just to be clear, the focus of the grant activity for the capital plan presentation, as well as what we're talking about here, really is on the PennVest program and the funding that's coming through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That's all coming through PennVest. We have I would say, a strong internal knowledge base around how PennVest works. And now that we've done, and we're focused on the lead program. So now that we've done the one grant application for the lead program successfully, we can model future grant applications around how we've done that. Don't know that we necessarily need a full-time internal person to help us with that. But it's certainly something we can look at when we do the staffing analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I mean, it seems like in the wastewater and water side of things, there's only a limited number of grants.
Yeah.
It's not like there's a whole bunch of them out there for a municipality that could get them for trash, or get them for parks, or there's all different departments. The water or wastewater seem to be limited. So I don't know that you'd have enough work for a person, either internally or using a consultant. Seems to be like the efficient way to handle it at this point.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it for all the strategic initiatives and staffing. I think that was probably enough. We'll roll into some of the numbers, and Ed, you can take it away.
So this is total payroll dollars on an annual basis. And you can see we're at almost $19 million forecast 2023, with filling the open positions in with 7 new positions plus an internship program. Total payroll should come out to be about $21.6 million. You can see that is a double-digit change of 14.2%. With respect to some of the costs, wage increases are pretty much determined by union contracts. We did estimate health insurance at around 5% increase, which is kind of what we've used in the last couple of years. And actually, the last couple of years, it's been slightly less than that, but we're staying conservative at 5%. So you can see the increase is a significant increase in terms of payroll dollars for the year.
And is that adjusted for cutting the consulting and the overtime?
No, this is,
That's not fair.
this is, yeah, so.
Let's
so in
get a
other words-
sandbag in the budget.
In other words, what you're seeing here is that inspector is built into the 21.6, but as you get into the operating expenses for like services and stuff like that, that theoretically would come down.
But when you ask it, this is your overhead, right? So when
Part
you-
of the
part overhead. So when you add in personnel, you have to compensate for that, for what is not going to be expenses, because that is part of SG&A.
I hear you.
So this number has to be corrected.
We could certainly do that. We could.
Yeah, I think that is a better representative of what we are adding. Because otherwise, you're comparing apple and oranges.
Yes, in this particular instance, we're just looking at the labor dollars only. I get what you're saying.
But we just justify the addition because we're gonna cut those costs from consulting and overhead.
Fair statement.
I think we understand. Okay. What?
No, I'm up yet. So, for inflation, I spend a lot of time researching between some of the experts out there on the internet, Office of Budgetary Control. They kind of are going in ranges of like 3.5 to 4.5. I actually even saw a statement that by the end of 2024, we'll be in the neighborhood of 2.3. But we're going to finish this year at 4 something. And considering it's not immediately going to drop to 2.3, try to stay on a conservative basis and not have an inflationary shortfall, so to speak. So we use 4% in terms of the inflation rate. In terms of city division lease rates, well, that is per the agreement. So suburban division wastewater rates, that is, since it's mostly signatory, that's by agreement. And suburban division water system revenue growth, we are saying 5%. And if you remember, not too long ago, that was kind of what we did for the capital as well. In terms of what I would call the internal services, just a couple points. We are still continuing to try to departmentalize. We can stick it on a spreadsheet. We can't get it through Munis, so it makes it difficult to compare. But when we finally get done with Munis ERP, we'll be able to take departments and compare what was actually spent to what we thought should have been spent, what was budgeted to be spent, that we cannot do now. Non-personnel costs are up about $833,000. That's a 25% increase from 2023. Part of that is inflation impact. You've seen some of this strategic initiative costs. The insurance and risk management is getting dinged this year because of inflation catching up with all the appraisal rates. So we are almost seeing double what we used to spend in insurance and risk management, and probably a continuation of that will probably force us to really think about RFP in that instead of going with the people that we've gone through the years. You can see the increase in education and training. So across the board, the employee engagement is going up. Public relations is going up, and with all the strategic stuff, you can see the increase in professional consulting and legal. So it's almost a 25% increase year to year compared to forecast. So getting away from internal services and starting to talk about the specific funds now. Operating expenses are in suburban water will be up 15.9 through 2023. They're getting the proportionate share of the personnel internal service costs as a result of the strategic imperatives. The inflation impact that we talked about, and in suburban water, we have an additional $818,000 worth of costs associated with water purchases. And this is as a result of the agreement and the fact that we're paying for some capital portion to the city. Capital budget will be 7.1 million. We'll borrow 5.2. That's very similar to the cap plan that we went through. We assume the revenue growth of 5%, of which 1% will be volume related and 4% will be a rate impact. And again, all of this is pretty much in line with the capital forecast. Suburban wastewater operating expense increase of 5.0% from 2023. Again, getting all of the proportionate share of internal services and personnel. Capital budget will be 11.2 with $6.4 million of borrowing planned. Additional revenue be 11.5%. That was pretty close to what we said in cap plan. I think we had 11.7, I think, in cap plan. Signatory rate impact will vary by group due to pay-go shift versus debt service shift. And they're working on the signatory user charge report, which will come out in October. And on the city division, operating expenses increase right now is 6.9. That should be 2023 forecast. Proportionate share, just like the other funds in personnel. Capital budget of $32.6 million. That's a big number for the city. Captured with $8.6 million in borrowing plan. The rates by formula 2.2 CPI, 2.5 per agreement. So that's a 4.7% effect, and we're in the final step of the amended rates. So the total impact on rates will be 10.9%. So this is a lot of numbers. Let's just, the things that I look at so far in 2024 for net income. All three funds are positive, that's good. In terms of cash flows, all three funds are on the positive side as well. And again, pretty similar to the cap plan. In fact, let's say we were just slightly better than the cap plan. Debt service ratios are good, 1.80, 7.05, and 2.50. So no issues with that. There's the total capital spending that we just talked about $51.4 million. At this point in time, I don't see any problems with operating ratios. I don't see any problems with, again, debt service ratios. I don't see any problems. We don't have the number up here, but I don't see any issues with days cash on hand right now. So that's the numbers.
So then, just to kind of wrap up, we'll be finalizing the preliminary budget requests and the signatory user charge report. Those are our two next steps. We'll be back a week from today with more numbers, more specific details on the budget, and then get into a rate review and budget approval in October and November.
Yeah, next week is cash flows. Favorite subject.
Happy to discuss, to answer questions. Any comments?
Big picture, so a couple of the slides there, so we're looking at like $3 million increase in staffing and training and all of that, so, and that's covered by the upcoming anticipated rate increases that are out there, so it's
Yes.
not talking about capital or anything like that, just from like an operations.
From an operations standpoint, it was as we expected. I mean, you are doing that much in staffing addition. And it's covered by what we thought we would need to cover it, and especially suburban water. Get concerned about that because that's been a fund that's had some things along the way. And at this point in time, given the borrowing that we had scheduled, that's still the same as when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It holds its own with respect to the staffing addition, stuff like that. Suburban wastewater is pretty much signatory driven, so they're paying for O&M, whatever that is. And city with the contractual obligated rates, same thing. So yeah, we're not doing anything funny with rates to pay the bills. So.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all right, we're done with this presentation.
We are done with this presentation. The presentation is also on our website, and Susan Sampson is working on a page on our website related to budget and capital plan. So the public has access to that and can provide comments along the way as well.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. We have no items under water and wastewater. We do have an item number 6, monthly project updates. September report was included. Digital board package pages 87 to 95.
So there's a number of project updates that are listed this time around, and thanks to the staff for sharing some updates on our various projects we have going on. Our next meeting is a week from today, so you'll see a few things come up actually on the agenda that aren't listed here. We have a couple emergency declarations we'll be sharing with you for that meeting. And just as an FYI, the Pines Island architectural and structural upgrades is coming off the agenda for Monday, but we're adding in the main pump station, auxiliary pump station design phase. So just doing a little flip flop there for the next meeting next week. We're going to hear again about the budget, and that's all I have. If there's any questions about any of the updates or any of the projects on the project list.
Just to reiterate, our next meeting is next week.
Yes.
And switch the dates around holidays. But go again. Right? Any further?
That's all I have.
Any questions? All right, staff comments?
Oh, actually, I do have one comment about the meeting next week, that our monthly financial report and monthly operational report, because our meeting is early, we're just going to submit those to you at another time because they will not be ready for Monday. So.
And just going back to the 2024 budget, if anybody wants a hard copy of the that presentation, is it possible to get it?
Certainly can ask me, or Lisa, we can certainly print you and send you a copy if you'd like.
Or we can review it in more detail. Any further staff comments? Solicitor comments? All right. Public comments on any topics whatsoever?
No, thank you.
No, thanks, Brian.
All right. Thank you for being here. Board member comments. I have one, just that a lot of questions have come up about safety. I've asked Lisa to give a more detailed presentation of the safety program in our October meeting, and give the opportunity for all the board members to question and for the staff to describe. So we'll have that in October. All right.
Right.
Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, Brian, I just want to thank Lisa publicly for taking the time out. At our last meeting, I had some questions concerning the Sledington, Washington Township interface with LCA. And she provided me with a good written update and explanation. So I just want to thank Lisa for addressing that in a timely fashion.
Anything else from the board? Okay, at this time, we're going to adjourn this meeting, and in 10 minutes at 25 after 1, we will begin our executive session, and that'll be dealing with legal matters. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody.